Welcome to Unshakeable Belief, the podcast for anyone ready to break free from burnout, reclaim their health, and rise into the life they were meant to live. I'm Monica Connolly, your host. I am an international best-selling author, a trauma-informed coach, and a speaker. I know what it feels like to carry the weight of the world while slowly losing yourself in the process because I've been there. Through chronic illness, identity loss, and survival mode, I had to rebuild from the inside out. This show is where real transformation begins through raw conversations, expert insights, and mindset shifting solo episodes. You'll get the tools, stories, and support to reset your body, rewire your thoughts, and step boldly into your next chapter. You are not here by accident, and your story is far from over. Let's begin. Welcome back to Unshakable Belief. Today, I have the honor of sitting down with Angie Wisdom. She's a master certified coach, an author, a speaker, and an entrepreneur. Angie helps high achievers and leaders cut through the noise and create clarity so they can live with purpose and intention. With over 2 decades of business and coaching experience, she's guided countless people to step into authentic leadership and build lives they truly love. Her book, The Non-Negotiable You, Reclaim Your Clarity, Step into Purpose, and Live Life Fully Engaged, which I do have, and I'm very excited to start reading. It also has a beautiful journal that goes with it. It offers a powerful framework for aligning decisions with values and embracing intentional living. Angie's passionate about helping people stop second guessing themselves and start showing up as the best version of who they were created to be. Angie, thank you so much for taking some time to spend with us today. I do appreciate it so much.
Oh, Monica, I'm happy to be here. I thank you for having me on the show and having such a conversation for us to share with everybody.
Absolutely. So, your path to becoming a master certified coach is a really powerful story. Can you share with us kind of the pivotal moments when you knew that this was the work you were meant to do?
Sure. I often look back and I think, gosh, I didn't even know that I was coaching before I ever became a coach. I started my career in the financial industry. So I was a financial advisor back in 1997. And every time I sat down with clients, I was asking them questions, right, about their future, what they wanted, how they wanted to live. And when we would talk about even investing, we had to talk about risk tolerance. And that brought up their fears or concerns, right? Maybe why they were willing to be risky or why they were super risk adverse. So I look back often and I'm like, gosh, I was asking all these questions and leading people before I ever said I was a coach. So it was somewhat of a natural transition for me when I realized that that industry wasn't what I wanted. I didn't love being a financial advisor. I looked at what I did love about it, and it was helping people grow and expand, not necessarily financially from an investment standpoint, but just even the curiosity and the relationship building. So as I kind of departed from that industry and I actually started coaching within it first, it was really like, "Yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing." You know how like Cinderella with her shoe. It was like as soon as I started doing it, I was like, this feels good. This feels like what I was meant to do.
Yeah. Did you ever have like an aha moment where you were like, "Yep, this just affirmed what I was thinking."
I don't know if there was like an aha moment per se, but I remember one of the financial advisors that I worked with at Morgan Stanley. And like I said, I kind of started coaching people from a performance perspective within the industry. And I hadn't really gotten to the life area yet. So I was like, that was kind of too woo wooey for me. And I was just like, head down, performance. How do we raise assets, build accounts? So I was still in that mode. And one day he said to me, he was like, you really seem like more of like a life coach. You should be a life coach. And I was like, what? And it kind of like, it was this light bulb, but also this, what do you mean? And he was like, just the insights and the decision. He started laying all this stuff out. And I was like, huh, yeah, maybe there is something more than performance there. So that was definitely a pivotal point where I wanted to expand coaching outside of just that grinding and performing all the time.
Right. Well, your book, The Non-Negotiable You, it's impacted so many lives. What inspired you to write it, and what do you hope readers walk away with it?
Mm. Funny thing, I created the morning mindset journal first. I'll just take you back to that. So when I would work with my clients, I wanted to give them a process that they could lean into every day. It'd sit in a group or they'd sit one on one and they would understand and they'd have clarity and action. But I really realized what was missing in the development of many people was like this everyday habit of rewiring your mindset, of thinking from a place of abundance, from taking control of your life. So I created the morning mindset journal so that people had this framework to live into every day. I used it for myself and then started using it with clients. Well, funny thing happened. They wanted to give it to people. And so people started buying the journal. And yes, you could do it without the book, but then people would say, like, oh, can you give me some clarity on the values piece? Or, well, like specifically, what about gratitude or the visualization? So that's really when it occurred to me, because I always said I am not a writer. I could never write a book. And that's when it occurred to me. I was like, "Ah, I've got to write a book around this so that people who are not sitting here with me have the opportunity to understand why each part of that is so important and how to live into it at a deeper level." That's what inspired the book. So the book came after the journal, believe it or not.
Wow, that is such a great story. I love that. Yeah, I love a journal that gives me different things I can do throughout the day to help me, find that clarity and purpose and keep moving towards my goals. And then to be able to have the book accompany that, that's great. Now something you talk about in the book is non-negotiables. Can you explain what those are and why they're so important for people looking to find clarity and purpose?
Your non-negotiables are the pieces that you are not willing to negotiate on, that you are not willing to let slide, that you are not willing to take anything less than your standard on. Now, it's interesting because most people, I think, when they think about non-negotiables, they're like, oh, I have this non-negotiable that I'm always going to hit the gym every day. I have a non-negotiable of prospecting for my business every day. I look at non negotiables as a relationship with yourself. My self trust is non negotiable. My self worth is non negotiable. The responsibility I take for what I want in my life is non negotiable, right? The control I have on my mindset is non negotiable. So when I was writing the book and talking about non negotiables, it's like if you just have these as your non negotiable, if you're true and anchored to yourself and in integrity with yourself and non negotiable about that with anybody else out there, the rest is easy, right? Going to the gym,
Yeah,
getting your business built, prospecting, worrying about what other things, everything else just falls in line because you now have this solid relationship with yourself that no matter what, you're not willing to negotiate on with anybody. You're going
right.
to lead yourself, you're going to trust yourself, you're going to take responsibility
Yeah.
for what you want. So that's what I determine as those non negotiables that make everything else possible in your life.
I feel like that is really a lot of us talk about alignment, and that really falls with that as like you have to feel that alignment for things to, fall into place and things to make sense. And
Mhm.
so I feel like that, like you said, you can have those non-negotiables, like I'm going to hit the gym every day, but it's those non-negotiables that you maintain that integrity and trust in yourself that really that's like the true foundation of where you have to start.
Right, right. Because look, at some point in time, things are going to go sideways in our life, whether you get sick, whether or not there's some family hardship, something. And these things that are considered non negotiable, right? Like never miss the gym. We need to be real, right? Like if
Yeah,
you're at home and you have the flu and pneumonia, you're going to miss the gym. I mean, it
right.
would be silly for you to choose that. You have a death in the
Yeah,
family. Like things happen. So when you have that non-negotiable relationship with yourself, it also comes with the grace and the ease and the trust for you to choose what's right for you without guilt, without beating yourself up that often people do. So it's just such a solid place to hang that non-negotiable relationship with, instead of on these little accomplishments.
Right. No, that makes so much sense. Well, so many listeners find themselves stuck in a situation where they're in transition or they're in burnout. What is a mindset shift that they can take from the book to help them move forward and start taking steps today to do that?
Anytime somebody's in kind of like a stuck phase or a burnout or transition, anything like that, it can be easy to think about where you currently are, and there's not enough focus on where you want to be. So the biggest shift, the most powerful thing people can do is really go, well, where do I want to be? If I don't like where I am, I'm in this middle ground, I feel stuck. Just give yourself, set the timer on your phone. Give yourself 10 minutes, whether you write it out or whether you just give yourself some space, and think about, like, what do I want the other side to look like? Where do I want to be? Because we have this amazing brain that as soon as we start tapping into the visual side of it and going, well, I want to feel joyful, I want to be peaceful, I want to not worry about things so much, and you start describing it, that prefrontal cortex, your reticular activating system, all these little components, they start working for you. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you start taking action that aligns with what you just set out and saw, right? Is your vision, versus most
Right.
people are still going, man, I hate the situation I am. I wish it wasn't like this. And the more we focus on it, the more it grows, right? So it's a matter of
Right.
like turning away from what you're sitting in and looking towards what you want.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes into part of my next question was so many people in their current role, they feel unseen in that current role and they feel unseen. They are, striving for this higher level of achievement and they really like I feel like those non-negotiables, they
Mhm.
can use those in that process of moving from a role that maybe they feel more unseen in. They may be a high achiever but still not have that feeling of fulfillment with their current role. They can use those non-negotiables to really lead themselves into that focus and move into that position that they're looking at.
It's so true. I mean, Monica, you know as well as I do, right? With your master coach certification as well, like, people often focus on the what or the how too often versus who they are as a being. And it always comes back to that, like, if you don't feel like you're being seen or acknowledged or getting the fulfillment, that comes back to an inside job, right? Like, we
Right.
have to look at how much do you love yourself? How much do you value yourself? What does your self-worth look like? All of those internal pieces are really what's going to move the dial in even your
Yeah.
external work.
Yeah, it's amazing. You could, I think we can both say we've worked with people that we see so much potential and we see them doing so many things, but we see themselves really holding back and not reaching that potential that they could reach. And a lot of it does go back to issues of self-worth and when you're able to address those with a coach, I mean, it's amazing what can happen in just a couple weeks with just a couple of really simple changes or tools that they're provided. And they start, doing something as simple as mirror work. And I say simple because it's, a couple minutes in front of the mirror every day.
Right.
So it sounds simple, but it is really hard when you're starting out or if you are in a position where you are questioning your self-worth to stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself and say kind things to yourself. And so I think that that's really we have these tools that we can give them and one of them is your book that they can take and gain tools from.
Yeah, and you're spot on. I mean, it can feel hard. I always like to try to get people to, you know, to focus in on the feeling of hard. It can feel hard because you haven't done it before, right?
Yeah.
Because it may feel uncomfortable. But like you said, it's simple in the sense that, look, it's not digging a ditch with your bare hands, right?
Right.
It's not hard work laboring wise. It just takes some real honest um and belief and self-worth and self-love. And those are the places that we're usually deficient in, because we grow up in a world that just says perform and be your best for everybody, get everyone to like you, get the good grade, get the promotion. Like, it's constantly
Yeah.
focused on external validation. So it's no wonder, right, that we don't look inward and go, oh gosh, how do I feel about myself? What do
Right.
I think and my value? If we all just, if they
Yeah.
taught that in school, right? I mean,
Right.
we would have a much different world out there. But it, like I said, it's all focused externally. So I find, and
Yeah.
you probably see this too, many people, whether they're in their 40s, 50s, I even have some in the 60s that come and they're like, this is it? Like, I thought things were going to be better. I've got this company, I've got this success, and it's still feeling pretty empty. What the heck is going on?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think so many times with those people that I see that self-doubt, I also see a lot of decision fatigue.
Mm.
Are there tools or practices that you recommend for building that confidence in your ability to make decisions so that people aren't running into that issue of decision fatigue?
Yes, I love this question. I've got the best tool for your listeners here. Here's what happens with decision fatigue. Most people make their decisions based upon their feelings, how they're feeling in the moment. And what happens with that is the majority of time it's not in alignment with what they actually want. They made a decision because they felt like it at the time. And then later they're like, why did I do that? Why did I say yes to that? Why did I stay out for the extra drink? Because they felt like it was the right thing to do in the moment.
Yeah.
Feelings are fleeting. They change with the weather, they change with your appetite, they change all the time. So we have to look at a more concrete way to go, well, how can I make decisions that are always going to serve me, that are always going to be in line with what I want? And that's your values. And most
Yeah.
people don't know what those are, because as we get older and we continue that life of performance and we try to be really, really responsible as either a worker or a business owner or a spouse or a parent, whatever, sibling, we put more and more responsibility in and we push those values out.
Yeah.
So when we come back and we go, here's what my values are, here's 7 of my values. Every decision I make can be made with those as a filter. You ask me to go
Yep.
out at night, I can look at my values and I know what it's going to say. You ask me to go
Yeah.
to a growth conference, I can look at my values and I know what it's going to say. Right? You asked me to volunteer at this organization. I can always look at my values and it's going to say, this is your yes or your no. So decision fatigue happens from repeated poor decisions. You don't know how to trust yourself to make the decision. So then you put them off and then they just start stacking up in the background like open tabs on your phone. And so it's a matter of just going, what do I value? And what do my values say? And I'm happy to share a values assessment. You probably have them too, that I use with clients so that they know, here's what I value. I value my family, time in nature, alone time, a spiritual way of life, challenge, physical activity. So if it aligns with that, I'm in. If
Yeah.
not, it's probably not a great fit for me.
Right. And I think something that's so important for people to understand is that those are your values. They're they're not they're not negotiable. Those are values that you have chosen, and they may not be the same values as your spouse or your parent or your sibling or a close friend, but those are the values that you've chosen. And so don't let don't let the judgment of other people tell you that those aren't the values that you should be holding. If those
Mm-hmm.
are the values and those are important to you, make sure that you're, living, I like to say it's living in integrity with yourself when you're following your values. And, kind of along the same lines as what you said, I tell my clients, once you've identified your values and you know what those are, when someone asks you to participate in something, or you're looking at, attending a conference, or, attending a retreat, look at your values and think about your goals, and are making that decision, is that going to get you closer to your
Mm-hmm.
goals? Is it going to take you out of alignment and where you don't feel like you are staying with integrity within yourself, look at that and don't give an answer immediately. You don't have to answer yes or no immediately. Give yourself time to really process it and think about it. Hey, I'll get back to you in 24 hours. Let me look at my schedule. Let me look at the things that, are important to me, and let me see if this aligns with that.
It's so important. I love the call out, and it makes me laugh a little bit because I used to have clients write them on an index card. I mean, I'm really dating myself, right? But it's like they'd whip out their index card and go, does this match? Nope. Okay. Sorry. No, it's not in alignment with what I have going on right now, but thank you so much. And maybe you offer something different, or yes, I'd love to. But just having that, now you could put them in your phone, right? You could screenshot
Right.
them, you could save them, you can put them on a post-it note on your computer. But I'm telling you, if you're listening and you know your values, it's your compass for life. It really,
Yes.
really is. And
Yeah.
it'll cut out the decision fatigue, the self doubt. You'll build self trust because when you start firing your decisions off and you're like, oh, that was good. That was good. You start trusting yourself, which allows you to make them easier. Start tuning into your real gut intuition. It's a magical thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, it's something that I love talking about with people. It's something I love walking my clients through. Um, well, something else that you talk about is living and leading with intention. How do you define leaving a legacy?
Mm. Gosh, that's a good question. I think when you're talking about leaving a legacy, some people think of it as like leaving something, leaving a name, a brand, a business, like something that's going to live on. I think of it more as the impact that you make within people that lives within them. So maybe it is not this name that's out in front of everybody, but you may have thousands and thousands of people who are carrying how you impacted them, what they have learned from you, what you have taught them. So that to me is really leaving a legacy. It doesn't always have to be loud and seen, but it's about leaving a lasting impact and feeling with as many people as you can. That doesn't come from just a coaching seat, right? It comes from you as a person. Like we all have the ability to be impactful, whether you work or you don't work. It's not
Yeah.
about that. It's just like, how are you showing up in people's lives? Using the gifts that you were given to make a difference, creating an impact that is going to last with them from here on out. That's the legacy
Yeah,
to me.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, going back to core values a little bit, for
Yeah.
someone who wants to leave that legacy and is looking to be more aligned and feel more aligned, what is a way that they can identify their core values if they've never heard about something like this
Hmm.
before?
Yes. I do a lot of question asking around it, as I'm sure you do too. And the first thing,
Yeah.
usually people can identify the ones that are showing up right now. So if I just say, like, what puts a smile on your face? What makes you just feel good inside, that warm and fuzzy in your belly, or your heart just beating, right? Like, what is that? And people will rattle off a couple of
Yeah.
things. Gosh, when I get to get outside, or when I'm with my family. Oh, when I'm doing something physical. So those are the easy ones. Then we have to go back. I always say we have to go back in history, and it may be like as young as high school years or something, where it's like, now what are the things that put a smile on your face that no longer show up anymore? Maybe you wrote them off a long time ago, maybe you don't have time for them anymore. What were those? Because oftentimes, like I said, our values get thrown to the side when all this responsibility comes in. And that's really where we find kind of the lost souls of the values and going, oh man, I used to really, really love fill in the blank. Funny story for you, I'll tell you. I was a gymnast when I was younger, and I was cheerleader and the competitive gymnast. And I kept going back in my life, probably at, gosh, if I couldn't say the exact years, probably close to 28 to 30, again at like 35, I think again at 40. I would say to my husband, I'm going to go back to gymnastics. And it became this running joke because every time I got a little antsy, he's like, oh, please, God, don't tell me you're going to do gymnastics again. Like, this is getting dangerous, like you should not be. I remember being at like the open gym when I was like 37 years old or so, and trying to get the back
Wow.
handspring. And I'm like, what is going on? Because to me, I thought it was a value. I knew that gymnastics was connected to a value, but it was connected with competition.
Yeah.
Gymnastics wasn't the value. It was the competition I felt when I was thriving at something and competing. So it's like sometimes you have to put together these things that you're like, what was it about that value? I mean, surely I'm not going to go participate in a high school play anymore, but like, what was it? And it might be commanding a room, being center of attention, speaking, having influence. So you have to dig a little bit sometimes. I eventually found that out. I started golfing instead. It was so much safer. And it was like, oh, now I'm fulfilled again, right? I have this value that hits that challenge bucket for me. So look at the
Okay.
things that really, really used to bring you joy. And so you'll have kind of the present moment values, and then you'll have all the ones that you ditched long ago that you want to bring back in and go, how does it look in my life now? And the amount of joy and fulfillment that you'll get that then creates that motivation and that drive to go and do what you were created to do is just, it's special.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I love that. Yeah, my daughter was a competitive gymnast, and so um, you think about the values that athletes have, and the practice that goes into it, and things like that. And if you were an athlete in high school or even in college, and now you're trying to figure out what those values are, go back and look at what was the work you had to put in there. Those are some of your values.
Mhm.
If you didn't have those, you wouldn't have been able to compete the way that you did.
Absolutely. Yeah. Vacations are
Yeah,
always a good one too, right? A lot of people feel like their values only show up on vacations. And
yeah,
and they may show up on vacations because you allow them the space to do so, but we can look at those on a micro level and go, well, how do I live that way every day? You may not
right?
be able
We're
to go hike to a waterfall every single day, but like, do you love time in nature? Great. How often do you get outside? So it's a matter of like going, how do these fit in my everyday life? The modification of when they're ideal versus every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, something that I see a lot, and I'm sure you see this as well, is that clients are afraid to make changes. And that fear, they can't always determine what that fear is. It's just fear. And so, how do you help clients navigate fear without letting it dictate their decisions?
Great question. And look, our brains are wired to feel safe and secure. We love to be comfortable. Our brains are wired that way to say like, don't don't stretch, don't step out of your comfort zone, don't go for things. So first I want to tell people that it's natural. And even that thought of like, oh, well, we're kind of naturally supposed to be protective of ourselves and stay in our comfort zone gives you the space to look at it in a different way. And this way of like, you got a mama bear in there, you have in your brain something that's called the amygdala. And anytime there is danger, which is even just a little discomfort, a little change, that region fires up and it's like, whoa, 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 like this is not a good idea. Let's just sit back and relax and just stick to our what we've been doing for the last 10 years. So just understanding like, oh, that's why it's happening. People have a different relationship with it. Oh, I'm probably not really genuinely afraid of what's to come. This is just the response that my body and my brain is giving to me. So that kind of creates a little gap. And then the other thing I would say to them is, okay, well, now that we have that understanding, what do we want to look at this as instead? Because oftentimes, like feelings can mean different things. I had a client and she was like, I just feel so anxious. She was doing something new. I just feel so anxious and I feel so nervous. And I was like, okay, tell me about that. What do you think that is? And she's like, I have no idea. And I said, how did you think you would feel? She goes, excited. And I go, are you sure those aren't feelings of excitement? She was like, oh my gosh, I think it is. I am excited. So oftentimes, what we perceive to be fear, we can reframe into something else just by logically thinking about well, what's to come of this decision? What happens if I take this action? Am I excited? Am I, whatever it may be? That way we don't have to take that default feeling of, oh gosh, I feel
Yeah.
this way. I'm scared. I'm fearful, and keep
Yeah.
it. We always get to choose different if we want to.
Yeah, I love that. I tell my clients, sit for a second and tell me how it feels in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And the feeling of excitement, like you said, can be confused with fear a lot. Anxiety can be confused with fear, anticipation. There's a lot of emotions that we immediately go, oh, it's fear, I'm afraid. But sit with your body for a minute and just go, okay, how does this really feel in my body? And does this really feel like fear? And like you said, so many times they go back and they're like, oh, that wasn't fear, that was anticipation or excitement or
Yes.
uncertainty, but not actually fear. And
Right.
so I love to if I have my clients like on Zoom, I love to watch them do this because you'll see their expression change and it's like, "Oh, wait." And
Mm-hmm.
they just, their face lights up and they're like, "Oh, like, no, I get it now. It wasn't fear. It's excitement or anticipation, but I maybe forgot what that feels like." And,
Right.
and then got that glimpse of it again.
Yeah, and I always say, like, you can turn your fear into fuel with
Yeah,
just one different thought. I mean, I speak, right? And so do you. So I remember long ago when I first started, I was like, oh my gosh, is this nerves? Like, I really want to do this. Like, why would I feel this? And literally, I just had to decide, like, oh, this is the excitement about the impact that I'm going to make. So I still get it every single time as a form of that excitement. Not that I want to
yeah.
go running for the hills, but like, man, I can't wait to be able to share and impact and create movement.
That's funny that you said that because I was terrified of public speaking and then I've come to realize that since I've been speaking over the past several months that it wasn't fear that I was having, it was excitement and anticipation and a lot of other feelings. But
Mm-hmm.
when I actually sat down and did that self-evaluation, it wasn't actually fear, but for years I told myself that it was
Yeah.
and stopped myself from speaking publicly, even was to the point where I was uncomfortable speaking in front of 2 or 3 people.
Mm,
And it wasn't fear, it was excitement and anticipation of the things that I was gonna share.
right, right. And people, like, I love that you share that because I want people to see that there can be both, right? Like, you thought it was one thing, but when you really investigated, it was something different. I know some people, and I've had this conversation, they're like, no, heck no, I am deathly afraid. The thought of it I have zero excitement about it whatsoever. And I'm like, okay, all right, so that's legit. Let's, but I want to emphasize the fact that if you really go inward and you have this conversation and you look, you will know. We are the source
Yeah,
of so much truth within us if we take the time to investigate and ask the questions, just like you did.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
fun.
I would love to know what is lighting you up right now. What are you working
Mm.
on? What can you share with us?
Yes. Working on book 2 right now, which I'm just so, so, so excited about. It kind of like a little bit of a sequel to the first one. The Non-Negotiable You is all that internal work to prep you to be outward facing. And the second book is really around the impactful you, which is now that you've done this internal work, how do you show up in your strongest sense with all of your gifts, all of, your mindset mastery to make that impact, to leave a legacy within people and make a difference in the world. And it's just so fun because it's so opposite of what people think when it comes to like always achieving and performing. It's really about stepping into your impact zone so that really everything that you want becomes a byproduct of your impact, not the finish line that you're trying to get to. So it's exciting work, and it just, part of me is like, it can't come soon enough, but I'm also constantly working with it. So it's this little dance we're doing right now, hopefully first quarter of next year.
Nice. Well, we will definitely be watching out for that. And you usually do you hold an event every year as well?
I do, yes. I do a Get Intentional event. It's usually in that February, March area every single year. Love, love, love that. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. There's just nothing like it in person. Growth and development conference, the way you feel. I mean, I would go to one every month if if I could. I'd just travel around and be a groupie of personal growth development conferences. But yes, I have that. So yeah, there's so many different things cooking right now, and it's all just in the greater good of how do we be impactful? How do we reach people and impact lives?
Well, I have a question that I
Yeah.
ask every one of my guests. So, for the person listening who feels off, whether that's physically, emotionally, or just not quite themselves lately, what's one small shift that they can make today to start feeling more like who they were created to be?
Mm. This might take us down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I am certified in hypnosis. So I very, very, very much believe in rewiring your mindset through the subconscious. So even for somebody listening, I'll make it really short and simple. Give yourself 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day, you can set the timer on your phone and close your eyes and relax. Just give yourself maybe 60 seconds to relax, thinking about relaxing head to toe. And when you're laying there, I just want you to repeat affirmations such as I am worthy, I am loved, I am valued. And just say that over and over and over again, 10 times each for each one of them, and just be there in peace. It may even take you only 3 to 4 minutes. If you can do that every single day, things are going to shift.
Yes, I will absolutely agree with that. Just that little shift of 5 minutes a day, it can make such a difference. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not, you may not see, you may not see changes happen overnight, but continue with it. It takes days and months for, habits to form and for new beliefs to form. So if you start this practice, know that it's not something you're going to see overnight, but I've seen people do this, and even after a few days, they start noticing a huge shift.
Yeah, you will. You truly, truly will. Just commit. Commit to even 30 days of it. And you have to even think about that message right there. If you're willing to invest 5 minutes a day into your own mindset and mental health, what does that say, right? It's already going to start to shift your self belief and your confidence. If you're like, I don't really have the time for that, think about what that's saying, right?
Yeah.
And there's probably all sorts of actions like that in your day that keep guiding you to this place of like, maybe you're not enough, maybe you don't have the worthiness. So that's what we're really trying to shift here, is that belief. So just by signing up 30 days, 3 to 5 minutes, you are already going to feel a boost from that.
Absolutely. Well, Angie, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your heart with us today. For the listeners, if Angie's book spoke to you, I encourage you to grab a copy of it. It's packed with all kinds of clarity, practical tools that can help you shift your perspective. You can also connect with Angie through her website and social platforms, and those will be listed in the show notes for you. And as always, if today's conversation resonated with you, please share this episode with someone who needs it. Leave a review to help us reach more listeners. And remember, you don't have to be fully healed to lead a powerful life. You just have to believe enough to begin.
Love it.
Thank you for spending this time with me today. My hope is that something you heard sparks the courage to take one small step toward the life you were created for. If you're looking for deeper support on your journey, you'll find free resources, coaching opportunities, and ways to connect with me at my website, monicaconnollycoaching.com. And remember this: you are not too far gone, it's not too late, and you are never alone. Keep rising, keep healing, and keep believing, because you, my friend, were made for so much more.